Hello and welcome to the green portion of the Duskmourn limited set review. Today I'll be talking about how good I think the green cards are going to be in the upcoming limited format, specifically draft. If you haven't been to one of the set reviews before, these are the tiers that I use to grade the cards. There are 5 of them. Tier 1 is essentially good, Tier 5 is bad. There's more, to the card. There's more, to it than that. We talk a lot about like archetypes that the cards might be good in, but just kind of as a general framework to discuss card strength, I think it's reasonable to have cards in these tiers. And we're going to begin with Altanak the Thrice Called, 5 green for a 9/9 trample. When it becomes the target of a spell or ability an opponent controls, draw a card. And you can pay 1 and a green to discard it and return target land card from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. So notably, this does have a target. You can't just discard it to try to reanimate it if you're trying to do that. That is like a thing. You could like try to it does have to actually have a target, but that should be achievable in a lot of green decks. And when you do have a target, it essentially ramps you, or it's a 7 mana 9/9 trample, which is pretty big. Part of the reason this is in tier 2 is a card that we haven't seen yet that references it. But yeah, I think this is just a good card, and I think you're going to be able to ramp with it very frequently. In the games where you can't ramp with it, it does get a lot worse, but it's still just a huge threat. The biggest problem with this card is it doesn't have an ETB, and your opponent can fly over it and kind of ignore it a bit. In some game states, there are some game states where they can't, like in terms of like flying, but like they can sometimes just ignore that. That was not true of things like Cactarantula. Cactarantula also 5 mana instead of 7. 7 is a lot of mana to not have an ETB. I think if you're just casting this as a 7 mana 9/9, in most spots you're going to be pretty unhappy. You kind of want to be finding a way to get something out of value out of discarding it. But I think there's plenty of ways to do that, so I think this will be a strong card. Anthropede. 300 green for a 3/4 with reach. When it enters, you may discard a card or pay 2. When you do, destroy a target room. So when I first saw this card, I thought it was very bad. But the thing is, there's going to be rooms, I think, pretty much everywhere, and a lot of them do actually have persistent onboard value. Some of them don't, but a lot of them do. And just preventing your opponent from getting to activate the second side of a room is pretty good. So I actually think like paying 6 mana to do that is kind of a thing that's going to come up more often than I originally thought. So I moved it up a bit. A 3/4 reach is sizable enough that I'm happy. Obviously, you'd prefer it to be a 4/4 reach, but I think being a 3/4 is big enough that it can block flyers pretty well. And if you want to discard a card for whatever reason, and there are reasons that you may want to discard a card, you can do that. So, like, just having the option to do that or pay the 2 is really nice. And I actually think this is going to be a solid playable green creature here. Balustrade Worm, 3 green for a 5/5. It can't be countered. It has trample and haste. It has delirium for 2 green. It return it from your graveyard to the battlefield with a finality counter on it. Activate only if there are 4 more card types among cards in your graveyard and only as a sorcery. So obviously this provides a lot of value. It comes back. Liam came back, so the second of the joke here is not as funny as it would have been if he hadn't come back yet, unfortunately, but it's okay. It's still on the slides. Yeah, it just has a ton of value for 1 card. Like if you just play it, as a 5 mana 5/5 trample haste, like oh man, like only a 5 mana 5/5 trample haste, like oh man, that's so bad, and then like you're gonna get the delirium, and in some spots you get this out on turn 4. Like in some spots you're just gonna like mill this over on turn 2, and then on turn 4 you're gonna get a 5/5 trample haste for 4. Pretty good. So yeah, this is just a really strong card. Bashful Beastie. 4 to green for a 5/4. When it dies, manifest dread. So this card is very interesting. The reason I originally hated this card because it has a dies trigger on it, and any card that says dies to like do the thing, I'm a hater of. But what this is really good to do is to have it be manifested. So if this is something that gets manifested underneath, and then you can flip it up, this is actually really good for that. Is that something that's actually like great to like? Is that something I should care about drafting early in the draft? Probably not. But is this card actually a card I think I'm going to end up playing? I think you actually are going to end up playing this in some decks. It actually is pretty good top end. It's very good when it gets manifested underneath the the creature. Like when it's the creature underneath the thing, because you can flip it up and trade with something and then manifest again, and that's very strong to be able to do. The problem with it, of course, is that it doesn't manifest itself in any way, and it just is a 5-mana 5/4 that just is ignorable, and you can exile it. So definitely not super premium, but I hadn't considered the like being able to flip it up piece, and that's why I've moved it up a little bit. Break down the door. 2 and a green for an instant. Choose one. Exile target artifact. Exile target enchantment. Manifest Dread. Yep. So manifesting Dread for 3 mana instant speed is not an amazing rate, but it's not the worst of all time. And having enchantment hate in the main, especially exiling, is very strong. So yeah, you're gonna play this. I think you're gonna play this in every deck. I think it's gonna be very strong in every deck. Yeah, it's always gonna do something. Cathartic Parting. 1 and a green for a sorcery. Target the owner of target artifact or enchantment an opponent controls shuffles it into their library. You may shuffle up to 4 cards from your graveyard into your library. So yeah, I mean, again, sort of more artifact enchantment hate. I've obviously bumped it down a tier because it's not instant. Getting to shuffle stuff back in your library is actually good. It's pretty good. It's a good thing to be able to do if you want to. It makes your deck quality, like it makes your draw quality a little bit better in the late game. You can just also not do it if you need the Delirium. So yeah, just a solid, seems like a solid card. Cautious Survivor. 3 and a green for a 4/4 with survival. At the beginning of your second main phase, if it is tapped, you gain 2 life. Not really exciting to me. 4 mana 4/4 that even if it just gained you 2 life on ETB, I wouldn't really be that excited about it. It doesn't do that. It just kind of sits there and then doesn't really do much. So it's actually survival does kind of play well with manifest in the sense that like, oh, I can attack with my manifest creature. It could be anything. My opponent is going to have a really hard time blocking it because it could be anything. And so like they have no like unlike what's it called? Disguise. Unlike Disguise, where there was only like there's I don't know 20 or so creatures that had it. This it could literally be any creature in the entire set, so they can't really block as easily as you could with Disguise. You couldn't like play around it. There's no rules when it comes to Manifest Dread, so that's kind of a cool mode with survival. So you can get 1 for free. That's still not that good. So like, I think this is just okay. Coordinated Clobbering. Single green mana for sorcery. Tap 1 or 2 target untapped creatures you control. They each deal damage equal to their power to target creature and opponent controls. So obviously working with the survival mechanic, it does give you 2 survival triggers. The problem is that it is not the best removal, and like again, your stuff being tapped is a cost. Like, you know, yes, you get to kill your opponent's thing, but they can still have other things that are attacking you. I think this is fine removal. I don't think it's like the best because I don't think it's like the best removal spell in just like any green deck. You could play it in any green deck and it would be okay, but not getting to get the damage in is like kind of a big deal. So we'll see. But kind of a little pessimistic about this one. Cryptid Inspector. 2 any green for 2/3 vigilance. When a face down permanent you control, and whenever it or a face down permanent you control is turned face up, put a +1/+1 counter on it. So we've had effects like this before, and like the 2/3s for 3 that grow when stuff happens, and generally they're pretty bad. This one is a little less bad, I think, than usual, but still not super exciting. Yeah. The fact that it works with itself is nice. So if you manifest it, that's kind of the thing that's saving it from being in tier 5. If it didn't work when it flipped itself up, I would be completely off it. But because it does do that, I'm like, okay, I can kind of see it. Defiant Survivor. 2 and a green for a 3/2 survival. At the beginning of your second main phase, if it is tapped, Manifest Dread. This is a very nice value like engine here. The problem is it is a 3 mana 3/2. So if you don't have ways to tap it, it is never going to get to attack. I need to move this down, don't I? The problem is if you trigger it one time, it's so good. Like if you just have ways to trigger this once, it's great. It's already great. And your opponent has to kill it immediately, or well, they don't have to, because the problem is it never attacks well. I'm going to leave it in the cowardice grade range. I'm going to leave it in tier 3. I think it's okay. The problem is the base stats, right? The problem is the base stats. Like, it just doesn't come in and do anything when it ETBs. There are ways to tap immediately. There are some vehicles, but they're all at rare. I think there's enough ways to enable this that I'm going to leave it here, but because again, if you trigger this once, it's a busted card, and if you trigger it twice, you're probably winning the game. But triggering it once is going to be a really tough task. So I think you're going to have ways to tap stuff in your deck for this to be good. Enduring Vitality. 1 green for a 3/3 Vigilance. Creatures you control have tapped to add 1 mana of any color. When it dies, if it was a creature returned to the battlefield under its owner's control, it's an enchantment. Actually, with Survival, I hadn't thought about this in the context of Survival yet when I graded it the first time. Let's think about whether or not I want to move it up. The reasons to not move it up include it is 3 mana for an enchantment that it's a 3/3 creature, it's double pipped. But it allows you to fix your mana for like the rest of the game and turn your creatures into mana elves. Turns them into elves immediately, so like on turn 5 you could play it and then like tap your 2-drop to play another 3-drop is like okay. This ability sticking around is pretty good. It can block well. I'll move it up against my better judgment. So like, it is like not the best. Like on 3, it's just a 3-mana 3/3 Vigilance. Like that is a sort of a low rate for double pip. I don't know. I'm still wrestling with this one. I'm gonna move it up here because I do think it enables stuff pretty well, and the fact that you just get to have good mana for the rest of the game is kind of a nice thing about this. Exile removal exists, so maybe it's actually worse than this and I actually want to downgrade it again. I don't know. I think there's just enough cool stuff you can do with this that I think there's going to be ways to spend your mana. This providing you more mana is good. Fear of Exposure. 2 and a green for a 5/4. As an additional cost to cast the spell, tap 2 untapped creatures in or lands you control, and it has trample. So this essentially is a 5-mana 5/4 trample, which is not very good, but you can tap creatures to like convoke some of that mana. That's very good with the survival stuff. In survival decks, I think this will be a card that you want. Otherwise, I'm not super excited about it, and that's why I have it in tier 3, because it seems to me like it's not really going to fit super well. Oh, you know where this does fit, though? You could manifest it and then flip it up. That's actually pretty good, and if you flip it up for 3 when you manifest it, that's actually pretty good, too. I'm intrigued. The problem is that sometimes it's just a 5-mana 5/4 trample, and that's very bad with no ETB. Alright, I'm going to leave it here. Flesh Burrower. 2 and a green for a 2/2 Death Touch. When it attacks another target creature you control gains Death Touch until end of turn. So interestingly, 2-mana 2/2 Death Touch is not the worst stat line of all time, because it does, like, as we saw kind of a little bit with a 3-mana 3/2 Death Touch in the last set. Now that one milled 2, and mill 2 is better than not milling 2. But this just kind of like is going to be able to block for the rest of the game, and your opponent like kind of has to use a removal spell on it, which is pretty good. And you know, if you want to enable some attacks or make your opponent's like blocks worse, you can do that in like the mid to late game. So I do kind of like this. Like I think it does a little bit more. Surprise Death Touch on a flip manifest with this kind of a thing. I don't know. It's like it's an interesting one, that I kind of like. We'll see how it plays out. I'm still not on like busted tier, but I think it's an okay 2-drop. Frantic Strength. 2 and a green for an aura, flash, enchanted creature. Enchanted creature gets +2/+2 and has trample. These 3-mana auras with flash have never really been good. I don't expect this one to be good. maybe this is the time, maybe this is this format where it's good, but I am going to start really low on it, and we'll see how it goes. Like if this time I'm wrong, okay, that's fine. But I'm gonna start really low on it. Grasping Long Neck, 2 and a green for a 4/2 with reach. When it dies, you gain 2 life. Yeah, I mean we've seen these type of like 3 mana 4/2s with reach before, and they're always generally tier 5. I have this in tier 4 this set because it gains you 2 life, and the fact that it's an enchantment is kind of relevant, and again, Manifest is sort of like manifesting it means you can get into play without having to cast it. With, well, you're still paying the mana, but you're not, whatever. Yeah, I mean, gaining 2 life is okay. I don't think this is very good, but I think you can kind of play it because it's an enchantment. Greenhouse, 2 and a green. For a room, lands you control have tapped out 1 mana of any color. Rickety Gazebo, 3 and a green. When you unlock this door, mill 4 cards, then return up to 2 permanent cards from among them to your hand. So just the gazebo side of this. 4 mana, mill 4 cards, return 2 permanent cards from among them to your hand. That's actually pretty good. Now it is from among the milled cards, but you're going to be playing a lot of permanents in your deck, and I think, 4 mana draw 2 with also milling is actually a pretty good effect, and I think that's sort of why I've rated this tier 3, and I've just ignored the other half of this. The Prismatic Omen or Chromatic Lantern effect, in some spots you're going to pay to have access to it, but I think most of the time you're going to be pretty happy to just play the gazebo and move on with your life. Yeah, I think that's where I stand on this. Hauntwood's Shrieker. 1 green for a 3/3. When it attacks, manifest Dread, and you can pay 1 green to reveal target face down permanent. If it's a creature card, you may turn it face up, so you can upgrade your manifest stuff for 2 mana instead of whatever it costs. Getting to manifest Dread on attacks is very powerful. Now, obviously, again, I'm once again asking for people to respect the pippage on this card. It is double green for 3/3. That is a lot. But the reason I like this more than some other green 3/3s that don't do anything when they enter the battlefield is that this one is going to take over the game the turn after you cast it. And if it doesn't do that, on like turn 5 or turn 6, you can just play this and flip your guy. And obviously it takes 3 green pips, so there's a lot of green mana. Like, again, don't get it twisted. This is a lot of green. You want to be playing 10 or 11 green sources, like minimum, to play this in your deck, and have it be good, or have it be at its best, I should say. It's going to be good in any green deck, but you do want to be playing a lot of green sources. If you meet those requirements, you can get an enormous tempo swing by revealing, like on turn 5, reveal your thing, flip up your 4/4 attack. Like that's just a lot of stats that you're getting for not a lot of mana, and I do think this is a very powerful card. Hedge Shredder, 2 green for a 5/5. When it attacks, it's a vehicle. When it attacks, you may mill 2 cards. Whenever 1 or more land cards are put into your graveyard from your library, put them onto the battlefield tapped. And it has Crew 1. So 4 mana 5/5 Crew 1 is a pretty good vehicle, actually. That's pretty powerful. The reason it's in tier 2 and not tier 1 is that it does not have an immediate ETB. But yeah, I mean, this is just going to get you a lot of mana and be kind of a large threat that your opponent kind of has to respect. I think, anyways. Again, it has vehicle problems, but not every vehicle can be perfect. I think this is good. I think this is a good vehicle, and it enabling your survival stuff is also really nice. Horrid Vigor. 1 and a green for an instant. Target creature gains Death Touch and indestructible until end of turn. We have seen this many times, and it has never been good, so I don't think it will be good this time. That's about it. I don't really... Like, I think they've basically done... They did this in black. They do this in black more often than they do it in green. It hasn't been good in black. It might be better in green than it is in black. It probably is, but I still don't think it's very good. Really like the artwork on it, though. I don't know. Kind of like a fan of that. I don't know if that helps at all, but... House Cartographer. 1 and a green for a 2/2 with survival at the beginning of your second main phase. If it is tapped, reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a land card. Put that card into your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. So 2 mana 2/2 that threatens to, draw you a bunch of cards if it's tapped. Got to find ways to tap it. There isn't... We've seen some ways to tap stuff, but I just don't think there's like an abundance of it. I think this is a fine 2-drop. It's going to be go in any green deck. It doesn't let you choose which land you get, so it doesn't really fix your mana. I'm leaning more towards good than great with this card. Insidious Fungus. Single green for a 1/2. You can pay 2 to sacrifice it and choose 1, destroy target artifact, destroy target enchantment, draw a card, then you may put a land card from your hand onto the battlefield tapped. So this is kind of cool, because you can, on 1 mana, do that, and then turn 2, you can, ramp yourself. Seems pretty strong to me. It gets your Delirium going, it puts a creature in your yard, lots of good stuff, gives you more mana. It does draw, like the fact that it draws you a card when it ramps, so you get to cast Explore, essentially. Explorer is not generally a good limited card, but when you have the ability to cast it or have like Artifact and Enchantment hate, I think that's a pretty good card. I think this is going to be very solid. Kona Rescue Best Beastie. 3 and a green for a 4/3 with survival. At the beginning of your second main phase, if it's tapped, you may put a permanent card from your hand onto the battlefield. So, obviously, if you have any of these extremely large demons, and you can tap this, you get to do the thing. I should put this down in tier 4, shouldn't I? No, I shouldn't. I don't know. It's fine. It does have 3 toughness for 4 mana. The thing is, your opponent does have to respect it, to a certain extent, because if it is tapped and you get to put like a 4 or 5 drop into play, you're going to win the game. It's obviously not amazing by itself. Like, it needs a lot of help. And in limited, it's going to be tough to give it that help. Constructed, obviously, this is probably going to do something busted, I assume. Limited, I'm just not 100% sure that it's going to be able to have something to get into play enough of the time. And also that it's going to be able to attack enough of the time and be tapped. But I think it's okay. I don't think it's amazing or anything. I think it's okay. It's probably going to get overdrafted and not perform very well as a result. But I think in decks where it actually can function, I think it's going to be good. Leyline of Mutation. 2 green for an enchantment. It's a Leyline, so if it's in your opening hand, you can put it on the battlefield for free, and you could pay Wooburg rather than pay the mana cost for spells you cast. Not very good, in limited, you don't need to play it, don't worry about it. Manifest Dread. 1 and a green for sorcery, Manifest Dread. Yep, Manifest Dread's a powerful ability, and I think this is a very powerful card. The thing about it is that, obviously, in multiples, it gets worse because you want creatures. Like, there seems to have been a concerted effort from the development team to not make green creatures insanely good, because if green creatures were insanely good, then the Manifest Dread cards would just be all busted. The green creatures are a little, they're a little on the meh side. So I do think that, that is something to keep in mind. But yeah, I think this is going to be one of green's better commons. I'm really excited about it. Moldering Gym, 2 and a green for the left side of a room. When you unlock this, search your library for a basic land, put it onto the battlefield tapped. Shuffle, wait room, 5 and a green, and when you unlock this door, Manifest Dread, and then put 3 +1 +1 counters on that creature. So 6 mana for a 5/5 Manifest Dread creature, but you're also getting to ramp into that. I really like this a lot. This looks really powerful to me. Getting to ramp for 3, we've seen them kind of playing around with this slot in the card file, the 3 mana ramp in green card, and this one looks like one of the better versions of it. You're getting to do this on 3, and then it gives you something to do in the late game as well. Looks pretty powerful. Looks like a very powerful thing to do. Looks like it's going to be really tough to deal with this. Should I move this up to tier 2? It kind of just gives you, it gives it all to you, right? Like, you're just getting it back, right? You get all your stuff. But yeah, no, I think I'm moving this up. I'm moving it up. Like, the biggest problem with ramp payoffs is they don't this is the ramp and the payoff for the ramp in the same card, which is actually something that doesn't happen very often. So yeah, I'm really excited about this. I think I'm very interested in this. Monstrous Emergence. 1 and a green for a sorcery. Additional cost to cast this spell. Choose a creature you control, or reveal a creature card from your hand. This deals damage equal to the power of the creature you chose, or the card you revealed to target creature. So this is a very powerful effect. 2 mana for a bite spell at sorcery speed is basically a tier 3 card unlimited. It's closer to tier 4 in 2024, but it still isn't bad. The fact that you can reveal something from your hand and your opponent can't interact with this seems very, very strong to me. They haven't really done this before with green. This is like a new style of removal spell that we haven't seen before, and I actually think it's gonna be pretty good because again, one of the major downsides with bites is you can't really cast them into your opponent's open mana because if they remove your creature, you lose the game basically on the spot. So with this, that gets around that. You can cast your removal spell into open mana. You can kill your opponent's best creature more often. Yes, you need to have a creature in your hand, but again, either you're going to have creatures in your hand or you're going to have them on the battlefield. And if you have them in neither, it doesn't matter because this card was going to be bad either way. So it kind of gets around the problem of I don't have any creatures in play. I can't do this. I can't cast this on turn 2 because I don't have a 2-drop. This actually solves it. Oh wait, this is actually really good because you can actually cast this on turn 2. One of the big problems with bites is you can't cast them on turn 2 because you don't have a 1-drop in play a lot of the time. And you can't kill, if your opponent plays a busted 2-drop, you can't kill it. But this actually allows you to kill the 2-drop on turn 2. That's actually really strong. Maybe this is headed towards tier 1. This is a very strong removal spell. The one thing about it is that it doesn't exile. So the fact that it doesn't exile in this format is pretty relevant. The red 2-mana removal spell exiles for some reason. It's not for some reason, it's because it needs the help. I think this is really good. The question is if green's best common, and I don't know the answer to that. There's a 4-way tie between the 3 cards. The issue with green, and what you're kind of seeing it is, there's a lot of green cards that want you to have creatures in your deck, and the green creatures aren't very good at common. So it's is that a problem? Might be a problem. That's something to think about. Something I'm thinking about. Omnivorous Flytrap, 2 and a green for a 2/4 with Delirium. Whenever it enters or attacks, if there are 4 or more card types among cards in your graveyard, distribute 2 +1/+1 counters among 1 or 2 target creatures. Then if there are 6 or more card types among cards in your graveyard, double the number of +1/+1 counters on those creatures. It is surprisingly difficult to get 6 types in your graveyard. It might even not be possible in this set. Instant, sorcery, creature, enchantment, artifact, land. That's it. You basically have to get all of them in there to get to 6. So you're probably never getting to 6 in this format. It's going to be really tough. No battles, no planeswalker. Well, there's one planeswalker, but yeah. So yeah, it's going to be tough. But the regular mode on this is really, really good. It's just not really a 3-drop because, if you have this on by turn 3, congrats, you're going to win. But I don't think that's going to happen almost ever. Maybe I should just move this up to tier 1 because it's probably busted. Because even though you can't play this on 3 really, who cares? I don't really care if this is played on turn 3, do I? If I play this on turn 5, it's still going to be really strong. Yeah, no, okay, I'm moving it up. It has been moved up. Yeah, I just moved it up because it's just so much stats, and you can put it on itself, and you can just play this on turn 5 as a 3-mana 4/6. That's pretty big. I don't know. It enables attacks. It can when it attacks, it can put counters on itself to enable its own attack. That's kind of a thing too. I don't know. This just kind of seems busted to me. Again, obviously you need to be enabling Delirium, but there are plenty of cards that help you do that. So I think you're going to be able to do that. Overgrown Zealot. 1 and a green for a 0/4. You can tap it to add 1 mana of any color, or you can add 2 mana of any color to spend this mana only to turn permanents face up. This doesn't really solve the mana elf problem of not doing anything other than producing mana in the late game. It does solve the mana elf problem of having enough toughness to to actually be comfortable blocking with it. You can actually block with this on turn 2, and you feel pretty good. You're going to be able to blank pretty much all the 2-drops in the set unless they have a combat trick, and if they have a combat trick, so be it. You're trading 1 for 1, and that's okay, right? That's life. Sometimes you're still not going to block, but sometimes you're going to block. You can threaten to block, right? They're always going to attack you, but you can actually block, and it's actually not so bad if they have it. So the fact is that this adding the second mana to turn stuff face up, I think that's kind of like more cute than good. Just fixing your mana is kind of the primary mode on this card, and it's good at doing that. I think it's fine, but I don't think it's amazing or anything. Overlord of the Hauntwoods. 3 green green for a 6/5 with impending 4 for 1 green green. When it enters or attacks, create a tapped colorless land token named everywhere that is every basic land type. So 3 mana, ramp, and then you get this thing later. So you can make like, it fixes your mana, it is green green. The thing is, like, this one, of all of the like horror avatar cycle guys, this is I think the one that you want to just cast the most on like turn 5, because it's just kind of a big 6/5 that like makes a land. I don't know. I don't think it's like amazing. It's probably going to get a little overdrafted just because it's one of the cool mythics. And I think it's good. I just don't think it's busted. So yeah, that's how I feel about this. Patchwork Beastie. Single green mana for a 3/3. It has Delirium. It can't attack or block unless there are 4 more card types among cards in your graveyard. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may mill a card. So this kind of helps you get to Delirium on both ends, right? So it's a 1 mana 3/3 that can't attack or block. Very bad. Very, very bad. But we kind of like, this kind of reminds me of Death Bonnet Sprout from Midnight Hunt. I don't think it's quite as good as Death Bonnet Sprout, but it has interesting modes. An interesting mode that you can do with this card is have it get manifested, attack with a 2/2, and then flip it over for 1 to make it a 3/3, because it's already attacking, but so it's attacked, and it's so thing to think about. That like it can happen to you, and it will happen to you. It's not a rules situation. Just milling 1 every turn on your 1-drop is kind of a powerful effect, especially in a Delirium format. It being an artifact creature is good because it helps enable Delirium when it dies or you mill it, incidentally. And green really likes Delirium, so I think this is going to be a powerful card. I think it's going to be good. For me, specifically, I always think about like what creature, like what is the size of a creature that is relevant into the mid and late game. And for me, a 2/2 is not, and a 3/3 is. It's kind of the delineating line where like a 3/3 is going to be relevant the entire game. A 2/2 is not going to be relevant the entire game. So it being a 3/3 specifically is enough stats that I think that although it's not going to be doing anything on turn 2, in terms of attacking or blocking, it's helping you get that Delirium fast, and getting that Delirium fast is really important. Rootwise Survivor. 3 green green for a 3/4 with haste. At the beginning of your second main phase, if it is tapped, put 3+1/+1 counters on up to 1 target land you control. That land becomes a 0/0 elemental creature in addition to its other types, and it gains haste until your next turn. I don't know why it gains haste. There must be some reason behind it. I guess so that you can tap. I don't know, whatever. Yeah, ignore that. 3 mana 3/4 haste. 5 mana 3/4 haste. Not the best. But it is kind of an engine that's like, okay, well, if you figure out a way to tap this every turn, you can just make all your lands into 3/3s, and that's pretty good. So that's why I have it in tier 3. I think it's okay. I don't think it's very good. I think it's okay, but if you were supporting it correctly, I think it could do something. Basically, that's kind of my take. I think it could be okay. Say its name. 1 and a green for a sorcery. Mill 3 cards, and then you may return a creature or a land card from your graveyard to your hand. Exile this card and 2 other cards named Say Its Name from your graveyard. Search your library, hand, and or graveyard for a card named Alteract that the race called, put it onto the battlefield. If you search your library this way, shuffle activate only as a sorcery. So, this is very good. This is, that card from the other format that I don't remember the name of. Anyways, the fact that it can get any permanent back is very strong. So you can just cast this on turn 2. You're very likely to hit a land or something, but you'll probably hit a land, get a land back. Great. On turn 6, you cast this, get whatever, get your 4-drop back, and then whatever. Like it's kind of does it all. Again, another one of the cards that I'm kind of talking about, I'm like, man, all of green's really good commons are not creatures and really want you to have good creatures in your deck. So I'm like, this concerns me. This is concerning to me. It makes me wonder, one of two things is going to happen. Either green is going to not be functional because it does not have enough common creatures that are high rate that you want to play, or these cards will work so well with just any creature that all of the green creatures become immediately premium. Like they all just jump up a tier because it doesn't matter. Like you just have to have a creature in your deck to get back or to manifest onto or to reveal. Like just any green creature. Like once you have the cheap green cards, just becomes so like playable and decent. So yeah, I think that's going to be potentially an avenue for green. Slavering Branch Snapper. 4 green for a 7/6 trample for a cycling 2. So, because of what I'm kind of talking about, I do think this is the best of the land cyclers. I have moved it a tier above the other ones. The reason is fairly simple. It's that, again, green really wants creatures. This is a large creature, and I think you can play it, and it's not a complete disaster. I don't think it's great. I don't think it's super premium. I think it is slightly better than the other land cyclers. But all the land cyclers are sort of in a similar area. I just like this one the best, but I don't really like any of them that much. Spine Seeker Centipede. 2 and a green for a 2/1. When it enters, search your library for a basic land card, reveal it, put it into your hand, and then shuffle. Delirium. It gets +1/+2 and has vigilance for as long as there are 4 or more card types in your graveyard. So this is good. I think this is a good card. It ETBs and gets you a land, and then it eventually, or basic land, and then eventually it just becomes a 3/3. Sure. Another card that you could, like in some formats, you could argue, like, is this the best green common? Maybe, might be. Like I totally could buy that. It doesn't manifest well, so there's that. But it does play well with Say Its Name. It's just good on turn 3. It's not very good in an aggressive like green shell, which again, it's just kind of the red-green deck, but I don't really think that deck's going to work anyway, so I'm not too worried about it. I think this is good. Should I move it to tier 2? Just like every single other green common? Maybe. Determining which of these green commons is going to be the best is it's going to take some delving. We're going to be doing some delving. Threats around every corner. 3 and a green for an enchantment. When it enters, Manifest Dread. Whenever a face-down permanent you control enters, search your library for a basic land card, put it onto the battlefield tapped, and then shuffle. Normally I would be very off this style of card. 4 mana 2/2, get a land, not great. But whenever you Manifest Dread, you get a land. That allows you to flip your Manifest Dread stuff easier. Manifesting Dread is very good. So I'm all about it. I'm all aboard. I'm all aboard the train. I like this card a lot, so I'm excited about it. Twitching Doll. 1 and a green for a 2/2. You can tap to add 1 mana of any color, put a nest counter on it. Then you can tap to sacrifice it, create a 2/2 green spider creature token with reach for each counter on this. Activate only as a sorcery. Yeah, this card's very absurd because it's a 2-drop that just is like also a late game threat. Now, obviously, the thing is, if you draw it late, it's not amazing. Okay. It still isn't that bad, because you can just start tapping and putting counters on it, and then eventually you just make like 3 spiders. And then this is in your graveyard, and it enables Delirium. I don't know. This seems really strong to me. I don't see any reason why this wouldn't be like busted, so I'm just going to put it in tier 1. Tyvar the Pummeler. 1 green for a 3/3. Tap another untapped creature you control. It gains indestructible until end of turn. Tap it. 3 green creatures you control get +X until end of turn, where X is the greatest power among creatures you control. Pretty good. And all this is very, very strong. Again, the reason it's in tier 2 and not tier 1 is double pipped. Double pipped is it's tough on your 3-drops. It's tough on your 3-drops. This is a very powerful 3-drop. It does require you to have another untapped green, like another untapped creature you control to give it indestructible. When that happens, it is really hard to kill. It works with the survival mechanic. Yeah, lot to like with Tyvar. But again, you know me, double pip guy, rain on the parade guy. I think it's good, but not amazing. Like good, but not busted. Under the Skin. 2 and a green, sorcery, manifest dread. You may return a permanent card from your graveyard to your hand. It's another one of these cards that I'm like, man, this is just so sick. And then it's like you delve a little deeper and you're like, man, I really hope there's a way to get permanent cards into my graveyard, because otherwise, like, all the best green cards are just like instant sorcery, like just all sorceries. Sorcery, 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 sorcery. Oh boy. It's a concern. It's definitely a concern. I do think this is very strong though, so I'm just gonna rate it highly. For now, you could run into problems with green where it's like, man, my creature, I have 10 creatures in my deck, and it's like that is not enough creatures. So it's dicey. It's a dicey place to be. Valgavoth's Onslaught, XX green, sorcery, manifest dread X times. They put X +1/+1 counters on each of those creatures. So yeah, like, worst case scenario, 3 mana, 3/3. Average case scenario, 5 mana for 2 4/4s. Winning the game case scenario, 7 mana for 3 6/6s. Okay, like, I don't know. That seems like it's not 6/6s. Wait, hold on. It's 5/5s. It's 5/5s. Yeah, but whatever, sure. I don't know. It just seems incredibly busted. So I'm just gonna, like, it's just so much stats. Like, it's just so many stats. Walk-in Closet, 2 and a green, enchantment, room. You may play land cards from your graveyard. Forgotten Cellar, 3 green green. When you unlock this turn, you may cast spells from your graveyard this turn, and if a card be put into your graveyard this turn, exile it instead. Not the most exciting card ever in limited. It's just too expensive for this. Like, there's other way. There's so many ways to recur stuff in green. Like, why bother with this card? I don't see a reason to play this. Wary Watchdog. 1 and a green for a 3/1. When it enters or dies, surveil 1. So here's the thing. Like, this card, like, it's the best green creature at common, I think. And so, like, maybe this is, like, required for you to, like, we've seen this before, obviously. Wary Thespian, tier 3 card in March of the Machine. This card is exactly the same card. It's in a format where it's actually going to be better than that format. So the format context indicates that this card will improve compared to its previous rate. It's going to be a great 2-drop. It's a creature. Green desperately needs good creatures. This is one. So I think you're going to play quite a bit of it. And the last green card, Wickerfolk Thresher. 3 and a green for a 5/4 with Delirium. When it attacks, if there are 4 more card types among cards in your graveyard, look at the top card of your library. If it's a land card, you may put it onto the battlefield. If you don't put it onto the battlefield, put it into your hand. Another very, very strong green creature. So the reason this is tier 2 and not tier 1 is that it is 4 mana, it doesn't need TB. Fine, but it is above rate. It's a 5/4 for 4. It is also an artifact creature, so if you mill it, Delirium, it's good to flip up with Manifest Dread. Lots of great things. I really like this card. Might even end up being tier 1 at the end of the format. I could totally see that. And yeah, that's it. That's the end of the green part of the set review. If you enjoyed, please go check out the other parts of the Duskmourn set review, and I will see you next time.